From the moment you became aware of the world around you, you may have noticed that life feels different, that people's emotions, moods, and unspoken tensions seem to press against you in ways others do not experience. That even when a room is full of strangers, you sense the undercurrents, the hidden stories, the invisible currents that shape the energy around you. And while this awareness is a gift, it can also feel like a burden. A constant weight that the world does not understand or respect. You may have tried to explain your experiences, only to be met with confusion or dismissal, told that you are too sensitive, too reactive, too much, and in those moments, you may have begun to question yourself, to wonder if feeling so deeply is a flaw, if noticing what others overlook is a mistake, if carrying the emotions of others is something you must suppress to survive. The truth is, none of this is wrong. Your sensitivity is not a defect. It is the very thing that allows you to perceive life at depth, to notice the subtleties, the nuances, the energies that most people cannot see. For a long time, you may have felt alone with this perception, carrying an invisible load, observing patterns and feelings that others cannot perceive, and struggling to find anyone who truly understands. You may have sensed tension before arguments arise, noticed sadness that was hidden behind smiles, or felt the anxiety of strangers as though it were your own. These experiences can leave you exhausted, and yet they are also evidence of your extraordinary awareness, evidence that you navigate life with a depth that few can match, evidence that your perception is attuned to layers of existence that remain invisible to most. Life often teaches lessons through contrast, and for someone who feels deeply, those lessons can be relentless. You may have found yourself giving more than you receive, absorbing more than you should, caring more than is returned, and yet when you pause to honor your own needs, others may misunderstand you, criticize you, or label you as selfish. The tension between your natural inclination to feel and care, and the world's inability to recognize that inclination as a gift, can create profound internal conflict, a sense of being out of step with a society that rewards surface-level awareness and visible action over emotional insight. Carl Jung described the unconscious as the part of the human mind that contains what is hidden, denied, or unrecognized, and for someone with heightened sensitivity, the unconscious is a constant presence, not just your own, but that of everyone you interact with. You sense the shadows, the unspoken fears, the hidden desires, and the buried pain that others do not acknowledge. It can feel like carrying multiple realities at once, balancing your own emotions while simultaneously absorbing fragments of everyone else's, and it is this depth that often leads to misunderstanding. People may see your reactions as overreactions, your caring as interference, or your awareness as a burden, when in reality, you are simply tuned into the invisible threads that connect life together. Early experiences shape this awareness. You may have learned to mask your sensitivity to fit in, to tone down your reactions, hide your intuition, or downplay your observations, in an effort to be accepted, to avoid criticism, or simply to survive. And while these strategies provide temporary relief, they also create distance from your authentic self, a subtle disconnection from the very depth that defines you, a tension between the world you navigate and the inner world that calls for recognition, integration, and self-understanding. The paradox of heightened sensitivity is that it is both a gift and a challenge. You feel more, notice more, understand more, yet the very quality that allows you to navigate life with such insight is also what exposes you to misunderstanding, judgment, and exhaustion. And over time, without awareness and care, the weight of this can feel overwhelming. The constant absorption of unspoken emotions, the unacknowledged insight, the relentless pressure of perceiving what others cannot. It can leave you questioning your own value, wondering if the depth you carry is a mistake or a flaw. Yet there is a deeper truth waiting to be realized. The sensitivity that others misunderstand is not a weakness. It is a bridge to clarity, insight, and connection, a lens that reveals hidden dynamics and unseen truths, a tool for perceiving life more fully than most. Jung would remind you that the unconscious contains both shadow and wisdom, and by learning to navigate this space consciously, you can transform misunderstanding into understanding, exhaustion into clarity, and isolation into empowerment. As you begin to recognize the patterns of giving, absorbing, and overextending, you may start to see the importance of boundaries, not as walls, but as structures that protect your energy while allowing your awareness to flourish, not as rejection of others, but as affirmation of yourself. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, you begin to reclaim your sense of self, your power, and your freedom. This is the beginning of understanding, the first step in a journey that will carry you through confusion, judgment, and exhaustion toward clarity, wholeness, and insight. It is the moment when the weight of being misunderstood begins to feel less like a burden and more like a call to awaken to your true capacity, to honor the depth you feel, the perceptions you hold, and the life you are meant to navigate with presence, awareness, and integrity. And so, the journey begins, not with the world's approval, but with your own recognition, your own acceptance, your own commitment to live fully in the truth of your sensitivity, knowing that it is not a flaw, not a liability, and not something to hide, but a rare and profound gift that can guide you to understanding, connection, and wholeness that most people will never experience. As an empath, your life has always been lived on multiple layers at once. You feel the surface reality, but also the currents beneath it, the invisible energies that shape every interaction. And while this awareness gives you incredible insight, it also leaves you vulnerable to exhaustion, confusion, and being misjudged. The world around you moves quickly, skimming the surface, while you are constantly absorbing the hidden emotions, the unspoken fears, the subtle shifts in tone and expression that others cannot detect. It can feel like carrying a secret weight that no one else notices, and often, that weight is misunderstood as weakness. From a young age, you may have noticed that your feelings were deeper, richer, and more complicated than those of the people around you, yet when you tried to explain it, you were told to stop feeling so much, to lighten up, to not be so sensitive. You may have learned to hide your reactions, to diminish your responses, or to apologize for the intensity of your emotions, not because you wanted to, but because the world rewarded people who could exist without feeling so much. And in doing so, you began to internalize the belief that your depth was somehow wrong, that it was a flaw rather than the extraordinary gift it truly is. Jung described the empathic experience as an interaction with the unconscious, not just your own, but that of everyone you encounter. You intuit the parts of people they themselves cannot face, the shame they hide, the guilt they deny, the sorrow they suppress. And this creates a tension within you. You are drawn into the lives of others without invitation, and yet, the world often interprets your sensitivity as overstepping, as being too involved, as a kind of emotional overreaction. The paradox is that your awareness is both your greatest strength and the reason others misjudge you, because depth can be frightening to those who are not used to it. In relationships, this dynamic becomes especially evident. You may have friends who rely on you for constant support, partners who take your intuition and your care for granted, colleagues who expect you to manage tensions without acknowledgement or gratitude. And as an empath, you naturally respond to these needs, absorbing energy, soothing emotions, and anticipating problems before they appear. But over time, this pattern can leave you depleted, and when you express your own needs, when you finally ask for space or recognition, others may react with confusion or even frustration. The misunderstanding is not accidental, it is structural, built into the way society values visible action over emotional awareness. Many empaths attempt to cope by withdrawing, masking their sensitivity, or trying to feel less. You may have tried this yourself, learning to tone down your reactions, to ignore subtle signals, to retreat from the depths that make life so vivid. And while these strategies can bring temporary relief, they also create a sense of disconnection from your true self. Jung would say that avoiding your depth is not a solution, it is a postponement of wholeness. The shadow you notice in others is mirrored in you, and the emotions you absorb are part of the tapestry of your own inner life. To live fully as an empath, you must learn to honor your sensitivity while protecting it. Energy management becomes central to survival. As someone who feels so much, you must become aware of what belongs to you and what belongs to others, learning to discern between genuine empathy and unconscious absorption. Saying no does not make you selfish, it preserves your vitality. Stepping back does not make you uncaring, it allows you to engage more fully when you choose to. This practice, though challenging, is what transforms your empathy from a source of overwhelm into a source of clarity, insight, and even joy. Yet the struggle to be understood continues. People may still misinterpret your kindness as weakness, your attentiveness as over-involvement, your intuition as intrusion, and it can feel lonely to be so deeply connected to a world that cannot always meet you at your level. But the truth is that being misunderstood is not a reflection of your inadequacy. It is a reflection of how rare it is to feel so fully. Your gift of depth, your ability to sense the hidden, your capacity for empathy, these qualities make you extraordinary. And Jung would remind you that the path of the empath is not about fitting into a shallow world. It is about integrating your own depth and finding those who can resonate with it. Patterns repeat for many empaths. You may find yourself in relationships, work environments, or social circles that drain you, where your awareness is taken for granted, where your effort to understand and care is unreciprocated. Jung's teachings suggest that these patterns are opportunities for self-awareness, moments to practice discernment, to strengthen boundaries, and to recognize that your energy is sacred. By observing rather than reacting, by choosing where to engage, and by honoring your own needs first, you reclaim the power that others may have unintentionally exploited. And this reclamation is profound. Slowly, imperceptibly, you begin to feel more stable, more anchored in yourself. You realize that the world's inability to understand you does not diminish your worth. It simply marks the uniqueness of your perception. You begin to navigate life with intention, offering your empathy with clarity, reserving your energy for those who respect it, and protecting your inner life from unnecessary drain. You begin to see that being misunderstood is not a curse. It is a sign that your depth is a gift that the world has not yet learned to value. Ultimately, the journey of the empath is a journey toward wholeness. It is a journey toward understanding the shadow, the unconscious forces within yourself and others, the emotions that ripple through the world silently. It is a journey of learning when to absorb, when to step back, and when to honor your own energy above the expectations of others. And through this process, you begin to experience what Jung called individuation, the integration of your depth, your shadow, and your conscious self, the moment when your empathy becomes a bridge, rather than a burden, a source of insight, connection, and personal power. And in embracing this truth, you find clarity, peace, and a freedom that comes from knowing your sensitivity is not a weakness, but the very thing that allows you to connect to life more fully than most ever will. As an empath, life often feels like walking on a tightrope. One side is your own inner world, rich and sensitive, filled with intuition and subtle perception. The other side is the world around you, chaotic, loud, and often unaware of the currents you feel, and between the two, you constantly negotiate balance. Every interaction is a test of energy. Every relationship is a negotiation between giving and preserving. Every day, a lesson in discernment. And yet, even when you learn these lessons, the world still misunderstands you. You have likely experienced moments where your empathy was met with confusion, dismissal, or even judgment. Moments when people looked at you and saw too much, instead of seeing the gift of your depth. Times when your intuition about a situation or a person was ignored because others could not see the invisible patterns you sensed. And times when your caring heart was taken advantage of because your generosity was mistaken for weakness. These experiences can leave scars, but they also teach the subtle art of self-recognition. Carl Jung would say that empaths are naturally attuned to the shadow, the parts of life and people that are hidden, denied, or ignored. You sense what others cannot, you feel what others avoid, and you absorb the energy that others leave behind. This makes you extraordinarily sensitive to imbalance, extraordinarily perceptive to subtle truths, and extraordinarily prone to exhaustion if you do not protect yourself. Many empaths struggle with guilt when they finally set boundaries, because the world has taught them to believe that caring means always giving, always absorbing, always sacrificing. But true empathy does not require self-erasure. It requires presence and discernment. You may have spent years trying to fit in, trying to appear less sensitive, trying to act as if the depth of your awareness was normal, trying to hide the parts of yourself that make others uncomfortable. And in doing so, you may have lost touch with your own power. But the truth is, your sensitivity is not a flaw. It is a lens through which you perceive the world more clearly than most, a lens that reveals truths others cannot see, a lens that, when honored and managed, becomes your greatest strength. Think about the subtle ways this plays out in your life. You may notice the emotional tension in a meeting before anyone speaks. You may feel the unspoken pain of a friend long before they reveal it. You may sense dishonesty, avoidance, or hidden motives in people around you, and yet, when you act on this awareness, you may be dismissed or even criticized. The world often mistakes depth for drama, awareness for interference, sensitivity for weakness, and this is why empaths are so often misunderstood. Over time, the repeated pattern of being misjudged can create inner conflict. You may feel torn between your natural tendency to feel and help, and the need to protect yourself, between your desire to connect deeply and your need for boundaries, between your understanding of the hidden layers of life and the superficial ways the world operates. This tension can be exhausting, and many empaths develop coping mechanisms, withdrawing, masking their sensitivity, overanalyzing, or even numbing themselves emotionally. But while these strategies provide short-term relief, they do not solve the underlying issue. They simply create a disconnect from the very gift that defines you. Jung would advise that the path to wholeness for empaths is not to hide or suppress, it is to integrate. To face the shadow, to recognize the boundaries of what belongs to you and what belongs to others, to understand the difference between compassion and absorption, and to honor your own energy as fiercely as you honor the emotions of others. When you do this, the world's misunderstanding loses its power, the judgment no longer cuts as deeply, and your sensitivity transforms into wisdom, strength, and clarity. And there is another layer to this awakening. Many empaths eventually realize that their struggles with being misunderstood are not personal failures. They are reflections of society's inability to see life at depth. People are accustomed to superficial interactions, visible emotions, and easy solutions, and your subtle, intuitive awareness can feel threatening or uncomfortable to them. It is not your job to make the world understand you. It is your responsibility to understand yourself. To nurture your gifts, set boundaries, and live fully in your own depth. As this awareness grows, a profound shift occurs. You begin to choose carefully where to invest your energy, who to trust, who to help, and who to protect yourself from. You begin to see that not everyone is capable of receiving your empathy responsibly, and that is not your failure, but theirs. You also begin to embrace the paradox of being deeply connected yet independent, of feeling profoundly yet remaining intact, of caring endlessly without being consumed. In this state, misjudgment no longer wounds you as it once did. You understand that when someone cannot comprehend your sensitivity, it does not diminish your value. It only highlights the rarity of your perception, the uniqueness of your awareness, and the extraordinary power of your empathy. You begin to experience life in a way that others cannot, seeing hidden patterns, feeling invisible emotions, and sensing the subtle truths that shape human behavior. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, you cultivate freedom. Freedom from the need to explain yourself, freedom from the guilt of caring deeply, freedom from absorbing energy that is not yours, freedom to choose connection consciously, to give from a place of abundance rather than obligation, and freedom to honor your own emotional world as sacred. In this freedom, empathy stops being a burden, it becomes a bridge, a way to connect, guide, and illuminate without losing yourself. The journey is not linear. You will still encounter misunderstanding, moments when your depth is dismissed, your awareness is questioned, and your heart feels heavy. But each encounter becomes a lesson, a mirror, a confirmation of your path, a reminder that being misunderstood is not a flaw, but the signature of your extraordinary awareness. Jung's teachings illuminate this truth. Wholeness is not about fitting into a shallow world. It is about embracing the depths that define you, integrating your shadow, and claiming the life that honors your empathy fully. And when you reach this understanding, when you finally honor your sensitivity, protect your energy, and embrace your depth without apology, you realize something profound. Being misunderstood is not a tragedy, it is the natural consequence of being exceptional, of seeing the world in a way few ever can, of feeling so deeply that the ordinary cannot contain you, and yet, in this very misunderstanding, you find clarity, power, and ultimately, peace. As you move through life, the pattern of being misunderstood continues in subtle ways. It shows up in family gatherings where your insights into hidden tensions go unnoticed, in friendships where your attempts to understand and support are sometimes met with judgment, in workplaces where your awareness of unspoken dynamics is ignored or even criticized, and in love, where your intuition about needs, fears, and desires can be mistaken for overthinking or neediness. This repetition is not a reflection of your inadequacy, it is the world's lack of awareness, a reminder that sensitivity is often invisible to those who do not possess it. Many try to adapt, to blend in, to minimize the depth of what they feel, and for a time, this may seem like the only way to survive. You may have put on a mask, pretending your feelings are lighter than they are, trying to act normal in a world that does not honor emotional depth. And yet, even behind the mask, you are absorbing, sensing, and feeling more than anyone else in the room, which creates tension inside, a quiet restlessness, a subtle ache that never fully goes away. Jung would say that this is the call of the unconscious, the part of yourself yearning to be recognized, understood, and integrated, the part that knows that hiding your depth is hiding from your own wholeness. You are naturally drawn to the shadow, both within yourself and in the world around you, the unspoken pain, the hidden motives, the layers of fear and longing that others avoid, and because of this, you often feel responsible for what is not yours. You carry the energy of others without meaning to, you feel their anxiety, their sorrow, their frustration, and you may even try to fix it, to absorb it, to smooth it over, believing that this is part of what it means to be kind, to care, to be aware. Yet, in doing so, you risk losing touch with your own center, with the very essence of who you are. The process of becoming understood, or more accurately, understanding yourself, begins with boundaries. These are not walls to shut out the world, they are lines drawn with clarity and love, lines that protect your energy while allowing your sensitivity to flourish, lines that allow you to give consciously, rather than compulsively, lines that teach others how to honor you without diminishing your gift. Setting boundaries may feel uncomfortable at first, you may feel guilty, selfish, or even afraid that others will reject you, but in reality, boundaries are the key to turning awareness from a source of exhaustion into a source of strength and insight. Another challenge is learning to distinguish between what is yours and what belongs to others. The emotions you sense are not always your own, sometimes they are reflections, projections, or the unconscious burdens of those around you, and learning to identify these subtle differences is crucial. Jung would say that this discernment is part of individuation, the process of integrating your conscious awareness with the unconscious, understanding where your sensitivity ends and another's begins, and embracing your unique perspective without being consumed by it. It is common to experience a heightened sense of responsibility, the sense that if you do not feel, absorb, or fix, the world will fall apart, and while this is a sign of your caring nature, it can also be a trap. True connection does not require self-sacrifice to the point of depletion. It requires awareness, presence, and the ability to give without losing yourself. By observing patterns, honoring boundaries, and practicing conscious detachment when necessary, you reclaim the power of your gift. You learn that helping others does not mean being consumed by them. It means offering your insight and care in a way that preserves your own energy and integrity. The isolation that often comes with being misunderstood can be profound. You may feel like no one truly sees you, like the world does not understand the depth of your emotions, the clarity of your intuition, or the subtlety of your perception, and these feelings can be heavy, even lonely. Yet within this isolation lies the opportunity for self-discovery. Jung would remind you that solitude is not the absence of connection, it is the space in which you come to know yourself fully, the space where you integrate your shadow, where you recognize your strengths, your limitations, and the unique gift of your sensitivity. Over time, as you practice self-recognition, boundaries, and discernment, you begin to transform misunderstanding into clarity, pain into wisdom, confusion into insight. You begin to navigate life with intention, choosing where to invest your energy, understanding when to absorb and when to step back, giving your empathy consciously rather than compulsively, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, reclaiming your life from the fatigue, guilt, and misunderstanding that once defined it. And in this process, a profound truth emerges. Being misunderstood does not diminish your value. It highlights your uniqueness, your capacity for depth, your courage to feel what others cannot, and your ability to connect to the hidden currents of life that most people never notice. Jung called this integration, the harmonizing of conscious and unconscious awareness, and for someone who feels deeply, it is the path to wholeness. As you continue on this journey, you begin to recognize that sensitivity is not a burden, it is a bridge, a way to connect to others with insight, care, and compassion without losing yourself in the process, a way to bring light to places that are often unseen, to feel deeply without being consumed, and to live fully while honoring the boundaries that preserve your energy and clarity. And slowly, gently, you begin to feel what it is to live empowered, not someone who hides or apologizes for depth, not someone who absorbs endlessly without discernment, but someone who sees, feels, understands, and chooses consciously, someone who knows that being misunderstood is not a failure, but a sign of extraordinary perception, a mark of a gift that the world has not yet learned to value. As you continue to move through life, a quiet transformation begins. The constant weight of feeling so deeply does not vanish, but it changes. It becomes lighter, more intentional, more aligned with who you truly are. You begin to notice patterns that once drained you and realize that you do not have to absorb everything, that not all pain is yours to carry, and that caring does not require losing yourself. This awareness is subtle at first, a gentle pull toward clarity, a soft recognition that your energy is yours to protect and nurture. With time, you begin to cultivate boundaries that feel natural rather than restrictive. Saying no longer carries guilt, stepping back no longer feels like failure, and choosing to preserve your energy is no longer selfish. You begin to understand that protecting yourself is the foundation of your ability to connect meaningfully. You give when it is aligned with your strength, you listen when it is sustainable, and you care with full presence without being consumed. This shift is gradual, almost imperceptible, but profound, and the freedom it brings is undeniable. This process also brings a deeper understanding of the world around you. You begin to see that misunderstanding is rarely personal, that others cannot always recognize depth, intuition, and sensitivity, and that their reactions are reflections of their own awareness, limitations, and fears. You no longer carry the weight of their judgment as if it defines you. Instead, you observe, you respond consciously, and you continue to honor your own perception. The clarity that emerges from this is a quiet power, a sense of authority over your own experience that no one else can take away. Love transforms as well. The way you connect with others shifts from exhaustion to alignment. You notice who resonates with your depth and who does not, who appreciates your insight and who misreads your sensitivity, and you begin to invest in relationships that honor your energy rather than deplete it. Emotional intimacy becomes a choice, not a trap. Connection becomes meaningful rather than obligatory, and giving becomes an act of empowerment rather than self-erasure. This is not a change imposed by the world, it is a change born from understanding yourself. Jung would call this the integration of consciousness and the unconscious, the coming together of depth and clarity, shadow and awareness. You begin to see yourself as whole. Your sensitivity, intuition, and insight are not liabilities but gifts, parts of a unique perception that allows you to navigate the unseen layers of human experience. You no longer shrink to fit a shallow world. Instead, you inhabit your depth fully, confidently, and compassionately. You also learn that freedom does not come from avoiding the world. It comes from moving through it consciously. You engage, you feel, you care, but you do so on your own terms. You recognize that your energy is precious and finite, that it cannot be spent unconsciously, and that the value of your gift lies in discernment as much as in compassion. In this awareness, misunderstandings lose their sting, the judgments of others no longer wound, and your heart opens to the fullness of experience without being burdened by it. There is a quiet joy in this realization, a serenity that comes from knowing you are not broken, not too much, not flawed. That sensitivity is your lens to see the unseen, to feel the invisible, and to connect deeply with what matters. You begin to understand that being misunderstood is not a failure. It is the natural consequence of seeing more, feeling more, and caring more than most. It is a mark of awareness, depth, and rare perception. As you embrace this truth, you find alignment with life itself. The shadows that once weighed you down become guides. The emotions that once overwhelmed you become teachers. The boundaries that once felt restrictive become protective structures that allow your light to shine. You begin to live fully, giving, feeling, and perceiving without losing your center. Every choice becomes deliberate. Every act of care becomes a conscious offering. And every connection is measured by the respect it affords your energy and depth. Ultimately, the journey ends not in perfection but in integration. You are whole in a way the world may not fully understand, yet you are free, empowered, and profoundly connected to the invisible currents of life. The sensitivity that once felt like a burden is now a bridge, a tool of insight, compassion, and understanding, a gift that allows you to see the truths others miss, to feel the pain others overlook, and to live with clarity, courage, and grace. And in this final realization, you are no longer defined by misunderstanding, you are defined by your depth, your insight, your ability to feel fully while remaining intact, and the quiet, unwavering knowledge that your perception, your sensitivity, and your presence are invaluable. You have moved from confusion to clarity, from exhaustion to empowerment, from being misunderstood to being fully known, at least by yourself, and in that knowing, you discover freedom, purpose, and the profound beauty of living deeply in a world that often cannot see.